Hello, and welcome to The Curators, a podcast about game projects on Kickstarter. I'm Joey.
And I'm Marcelo. You can find all the games from this episode, as well as plenty of others, at our curated page at kickstarter.com/Gamerati.
You can also find links to each of these projects in the show notes of this episode at thecurators.gamerati.com. If you're a backer of any of these projects, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at thecurators@gamerati.com. Tell us why you're backing a certain project, and we may feature your email on the podcast.
You know what I don't know, Joey?
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot you don't know.
But relevant to the podcast. I don't know who's first this time.
I am.
Aha, and then?
And then me.
Oh, so two of you and then mine.
And then yours.
So let's go then.
The first one I want to talk about, it has 13 days left on it. It's called Adventure Mart. It is a deck building store management game. It has this theme that you're basically setting up like a 7-Eleven or a Quickie Mart outside of each dungeon that appears for adventurers, and you are selling them products. You're selling them goods for their adventuring party. And so essentially this is a deck builder. It's got a ton of deck building elements. You're mostly supposed to try and grab the attention of the adventurers for your victory points. They come and buy stuff from your shop and give you coins to then buy new items. You can hire employees to do extra stuff that will grant you extra actions, and just it's basic in its mechanics. It's nothing we haven't seen. I guess the mechanics themselves are not things we haven't seen, but putting them together has been kind of not done in this sort of way. And the cutesy art and the fun storytelling is definitely a huge part of it. Even in the art, if you look at the basic stock cards, like your basic starting deck, you know how you always have in a deck builder the same starting deck as all your opponents. In this one, you get a wanderer's cloak and a pet slime. And the picture of the pet slime, he has a leash, but the collar section is just inside him. He doesn't have a neck, so he wouldn't have a leash. And I think that's cute and funny. Hilarious, actually. But then other things that you can stock are like the Dragonberry Blast, essentially energy drink. It looks like a little dragon that's spouting fire from the top of its can, because it's also a can. And you can hire employees like the Worker of Nights. He's your janitor, essentially. The Bard of the Red Mountain, he sits there and you summon him. Normally, all other managers have to fold. They can't bid on other stocks, so you have to bid on getting certain stock into your different stores. I love the little regional manager token because he walks around and makes sure that all of his stores are doing really well, and he's this little dragon guy with the Adventure Mart apron on. And I just think it's really cute. The whole thing is real simple. It's got a really easy to follow how to play with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gifts to just watch. It's basically how you're going to make points. You hire employees, activate abilities, make sales. That's it. It's really simple. There's not a whole lot else to say. I mean, the whole game is just a slam dunk. Unfortunately, I don't think they're fully funded yet, which I think is really weird. It has so much going for it in the art and even in the theme and the style and all that, and it's still only 13,000 of 19,000 US dollars. It's actually a game out of the UK where they're asking for 15,000 pounds. I think this should 100% fund. It actually really should. They only have less than 5,000 pounds to go. They're at least, 66% of the way done, meaning they're probably going to fund really late in the campaign. They'll slowly build as the campaign continues, and then once they hit the last 24 hours, people will jump in and back. So I think it looks like a great game. It's a real easy sell for me. I'm very close to backing it myself just because it looks awesome, even if I can't really afford to back games right this moment. I'm down looking at the shipping. The US shipping should be around $13 to $20. Seems a little bit high for most shipping in America, but I mean, it's still totally doable and worth it, in my opinion. So hopefully that does happen for them. What do you think about Adventure Mart?
I think if I had, like back when I used to have a lot more contact with my wife's nephews, it would be a game that I would definitely back just to play with them. It seems that it doesn't require a lot of text, and the art is very, very cute, very well done, very colorful. I would back it if I had children around me. But I don't, so
Yeah.
I won't.
I think this has a little bit more strategy than what would be acceptable for children. I mean, it does say 10 plus, and that's technically children, I guess. I guess I'm thinking about my kids. My kids are 7 and 5, so they might not be able to get a hold of this game because they'd still have to read the phrase legendary creature familiar to understand what that means. But otherwise, I think any kid would love to see this, and it's just a super cute game. So my second project is actually a project that I worked on myself, which is actually good for our listeners because and our viewers because they will know that I have a dog in this race. Essentially, this is a game that I helped work on. I helped Patrick Petersen, the creator. He sent us a copy of the game, and originally when we got the game, it was just a double deck card game. It still is, but we got just the cards, and he said, hey, what do you think about this game? I want to get to Kickstarter. How can we do this? And Ed and I played it, and we're like, there's a game here, but it's not fun yet. How can we make this fun? And we went back and forth with him, and I think at a certain point he'd kind of hit a creative plateau, I guess you could say. And so when he sent it to us, we're like, let's jumpstart that creative process again, give him some ideas, help him move forward, and he really moved forward. We worked on just the way that the game feels. Personally, I believe I suggested that he add more monsters to the deck because originally it only had a certain amount of monsters. He's like, well, I'm not designing new monsters. One of my biggest contributions is, well, why not just have the same monster show up more than once? You can have just a bigger deck and just more variety in the fact that this time when we went through the dungeon, there were more dire bears than last time we went through the dungeon. We just shuffled the deck differently, which ended up being added into the final game. I thought that was the better way to add more variety to the game, whereas you weren't always seeing the same exact dungeon all the time. Now, the way that we have this written up now, the game has multiple tiers of play and ways you can play it. If you do play the entire dungeon deck, with 4 extra lives, that's the easiest way to play it. You'll play through all of the cards. It'll kind of take you a longer time to play through all of the cards, but each time you defeat a monster, you get to loot. So by the time you make it to the boss, you should be really kitted out for defeating the boss. If you have fewer cards in the deck, you'll kind of rush to the boss too quickly, and you might not have the overall power to take it down, which would make it actually harder. A faster game, a slightly harder game. You can start with fewer extra lives, all kinds of different ways that you can kind of tailor this game to be the way you want to play it. Right now, they're going through several stretch goals. They got the new Portal Dungeon card, 5 new pet loot cards, so 1 for each color. The game is based on a color system that also has symbols, so it is colorblind friendly. These 4 colors plus neutral are the 4 that your characters represent. So there's green for the ranger, there's red for the fighter, there's yellow for the cleric, and purple for the thief. And then there's a neutral color that's just gray, I believe. And when you're playing, this is kind of the way that the loot functions in this game. You'll spend these cards, these colored cards, and you'll spend them with other cards. Some of them combo, some of them don't. Some of them just deal straight damage to the enemies. And when you do that, they don't go into your discard right away. They go into a score pile. The monsters that you defeat also go into the score pile. And then when you purchase cards out of the loot row, one of your cards that you're using to purchase it with from your score pile has to match the color of the card that you're purchasing. So if you kill a green monster and you're the red guy, you can now buy a green card and start to buy more green cards, which is kind of a cool way to get new abilities and not just be stuck with your one playstyle, the one color. And I really liked that concept, but it actually is a little bit difficult for, I think, a lot of people to understand. I think I had it in my mind at one point to have a separate pile for scoring, but when Patrick actually came up with the idea completely, he was like, what if we just have a score pile, like a specific pile that is just a different method in which the cards spent go into it instead of the discard, because originally you were only pulling from the discard to buy things. When you bought things from the discard, that's how the discard pile went into your main deck, which was super duper confusing for players who are used to regular deck builders, because this has deck building elements. And so how do I refresh my discard if that's the only way I can do it? and I need new cards, but I can't buy anything yet. Like that whole question had come up. So now the score pile is like a temporary amount of cards that you can use to just loot with. Then they go all into your discard, and then when you need a new deck, you just shuffle like a regular deck builder. It makes a lot more sense. The whole score pile is still throwing some people off. When I heard about it, it reminded me of the old Star Wars CCG. Did you ever play the old Star Wars CCG?
I know of it, but I never played it.
It's a really old game. It actually was just awful. It was based on owning locations with certain characters. The game itself played really heavily on just playing events and interruptions and just weird different cards that didn't really. The battle system was like 7 steps long, and you could just win via attrition. That was an actual mechanic, was to win via attrition, which is just a weird thing to add into a game. Just, hey, how about you draw out the combat for forever until it's clear that someone's going to lose slightly less than you. They had a mechanic where if you owned a certain number of locations, or any number of locations, they would generate force. And the force was represented by cards in your main deck turning into a force deck, essentially. And that was kind of your mana that you would use, like the way Magic the Gathering uses mana, sort of. And then those cards would go into your discard after you spent them. So you had to be careful. And sometimes you could search your force pile for cards. You could search your main deck for cards, or you could kind of learn what's in your force pile and draw from that instead. So you could manage these 4 different locations of cards: your hands, the force pile, your discard, and your main deck. It was a mess. But for me, the concept of having a score pile actually made a ton of sense. And I think that we're still trying to get people to understand what it means to have a score pile. It's a temporary amount of cards that you just use to purchase cards in the loot row. Cards in the loot row have a value. They have like a number attached to them. The axe right here has 3 red. You just have to spend 3 cards, and one of them has to be red, or the card you kill has to be red, and then you can purchase that axe if it's in the loot row. It's very simple. Then all of your loot cards go into the discard. The card that you purchased actually goes into your hand, which is another backwards sort of deck builder concept. Then you get to, have all the enemies go and all that stuff. And I'm not even talking about like how the game is built. There's actually a GIF that half shows the game is built on a side-scrolling element. Like honestly, I could talk about this game for days. I've gotten so deep in it. I actually showed it off at DreamHack in Dallas really recently. We went down to Dallas and I showed it off like 4 or 5 times to a bunch of different people and just got them interested. I think somebody went like on their phone and backed it right away because they really loved it. The game has this side-scrolling element where there's 8 cards in a row. The first 4 are the heroes. The last 4 are the villains. And so when you go through the entire turn order, you go from slot 1 to slot 8. The heroes get to take their turns, and then the enemies get to take their turns, and then you go back around to the round. And so it has this real like trudging through a hallway sort of feel, which is really cool. And the enemies, when they drop, they come out unable to attack. So like if you drop a creature in slot 5, everybody shifts down to get closer to you, and then another enemy comes out in slot 8. He can't attack when it becomes his turn because he's like summoning sickness. But there's certain cards that are like that hide the monsters behind them. They're doors. And so like when you see a door come out, you're like, oh crap, okay, we have to really prepare for this door, because when we kick in the door, all the enemies get to go. They're all waiting for us there, essentially. They all come out upside down. We don't even know what they are. We can't attack them. We can't do anything to them. It's got a really good element of kind of the roller coaster. We have everything going well for us. We're looting well. We all have a lot of cards in our hand. We're all doing a good job. And then the door comes out, and now we're all freaking out. And suddenly we got to, really prepare and make sure that we get the right stuff. And maybe we don't proc the door this round. We try to do it again next round. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I could talk about Dungeon Brawler for days. I'm very interested in both the games I talked about, even though I only spent like 4 minutes on the first one and like 12 minutes on the second one. But that's just because I'm so close to Dungeon Brawler, and I'm really excited to see it funded. It is over 200% funded. They're breaking stretch goals pretty consistently, actually. So there's new monster cards, brand new monster cards. What's the next stretch goal? Because they're already at 11. Actually, the previous stretch goal was $10,900, and they're only at $11,030. So that's only $100 past the stretch goal. They're probably not going to show the next stretch goal for another like $200 maybe. So we'll see. But 456 backers, it's looking like a pretty solid project.
All right, so my game is called Unbearable Winter, the board game. It's a fur-lightening survival board game of cute bears and cruel betrayal. The nuclear winter has arrived, so you should fend for your lives. This is a game out of Singapore from Start Something Studios. It's the first game on Kickstarter. They needed almost $11,000. They are almost 300% with still 19 days to go. So it's the most sinister zoo ever in Atomic Metro. That's the name of the town, the city. There are mutant lions, giant sea monsters in the aquarium, there's flooding on the streets, the seven seals of Revelation, a nuclear warhead in the zoo, and a gang of ne'er-do-well bears at the center, which are the characters. You play as one of the bears. Up to 4 people can play the game so far, although they might have rules expansions for more people. I don't know, they haven't revealed that yet. Anyhow, you have to face the coming winter and the craziness of the zoo, because it's not any winter, it's a nuclear winter. It's one of those games, it's actually a card game. You play mostly with cards, even the locations are cards, but because there is a playmat and you roll a couple of dice, literally just 2 dice, it's considered a board game. So the idea here is that you need to preserve the cage bars on the central location where the bears live. The cage, you see, protects not people on the zoo, but protect the bears from the people, the crazy mutant people on the Atomic Zoo. Each game starts with, like, you draw one of the calamities deck. There are, I think, 30 different calamities. So the danger the players have to overcome change completely from match to match. The calamities remove cage bars, so you have to collect resources to survive before you lose all the bars. The resources are cards. You collect food, heat, and power. Those are the things you need to restock and rebuild. I think that nowadays any cooperative game worth their salt has to have some kind of hidden enemy mechanic. Well, Unbearable Winter has one too. One of the bears in the beginning of the game, you pick a card on the role of your character. You could be a good bear or a bad bear. If you're a bad bear, you are actually secretly psychotic and want to see everybody die. So you're likely to have that on every game. You move each bear. Each bear is a 2D standing with a flat base, which I like a lot. It allows for better art on the standings. Miniatures are cool, but it doesn't need to be miniatures necessarily, especially if you don't want to make your game too expensive. So the flat stand-in in this game, I think it's way better, any game actually, way better than a card that represents a character or a token, a flat token that represents a character. The stand-in is cool. Anywho, you move your bear to one of the locations that you draw at random at the beginning of each game. I think there are 20 location cards, but you use only 8. You go there, there's a pile of cards on each location, and you roll a dice. You roll your instinct die to draw one or more cards and pick one. You have to be aware of the humans. The humans are very dangerous in this place. And then you have to go back to the bear cage to deliver your supplies. And
so, have you played Dead of Winter?
Yes.
Does this sound very much like Dead of Winter to
Yeah,
you?
a little bit, yeah.
Interesting.
Without the wacky stuff here. For me, the strong points of this game is the bears and their personalities. So you have Slick, the big black bear, which is kind of a gangster, a mafia gangster. You have Foggy, the bipolar bear. Then you have Musk, the grizzly bear, which is kind of a jock. Flash, the sun bear. The water bear is called... There's a water bear, which is actually not a bear, but anyhow, a water bear is called Moist. That's the initial game, but there are different play modes. There is a solo game, there is a competitive game, there's a co-op game. There are several different modes of games which come with their own rules book in the box. There are different versions of the box. They are promoting more bears. So far, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bears. But they want to go up to 8 bears, being the 8th bear, a collaboration with the Kickstarter backers on Discord. Once they get there on the stretch goal, You can read the rules online. They have a link for the rules. They have how to play with 2 of the creators. And the crowdfunding drive goes until the 2nd of July. One of the stretch goals, as I said, is extra. That's the stretch goal I'm paying attention to, which is extra modes of play. There's also some gimmicks, like the playmat is made of paper, but there's a stretch goal that turns the playmat into... It's a kind of neoprene. It's not called neoprene because I believe neoprene is... No. It's neoprene. I thought of something else. It's neoprene, which is a weird stretch goal. I always assume like playmats are going to be neoprene, but anyhow, at least you have something to look for. And one of the things I'm looking for in this kind of game, I always look for in this kind of game, is replayability. Those kinds of games can easily get repetitive. This one promises a lot of replayability, if that's a word, because there are 30 different calamities. You draw in only one. There are 30 total. The calamities radically change the rules of the game, and there are 20 locations. They are all treacherous, they're all dangerous, but they're completely different one from the other. You can see a couple of them on some of the illustrations. You draw them randomly in each game, so you're guaranteed a lot of replay here, it seems. There's a list of rewards here with the complete content of the box. I didn't say that. It's a game that plays between 45 and 90 minutes for 4 to 6 players, but it might go up to 8.
Minimum of 4 players. I mean, that makes sense with hidden role games, I guess. Minimum of 4 players.
Yeah, you have to have a lot because at least one of them has to be like if you're playing a 2-player game and one of the players is the bad bear. It's kind of obvious.
Right, of course.
Let's see shipping here. Let's take a look. Shipping is pretty inexpensive.
Not for you, I bet.
Yeah, especially. They have a lot of stretch goals. They have some of those social media stretch goals. Shipping here. So they're from Singapore. So to Singapore, it's 8 Singapore dollars. I don't know how much that is. Anyhow, for the United States and Canada is 10 US dollars. And for the rest of the world is 15 US dollars. The game itself is $50. We'll build the zoo is the stretch goal. $50. Where you get the core game, a Kickstarter exclusive bear, all Kickstarter stretch goals, and you have access to the Discord server. Then you have one that is limited to 500 people. There are already at 408 backers, which is the Big Bear Boss, which comes every...
That's 408 remaining.
Remaining. Oh, 408 left. I read that backwards. Anyhow, so you have everything that comes in the core box, Kickstarter exclusives, unlock stretch goal rewards. In addition, it comes with one with the premium upgrades, a beautiful neoprene playmat. Oh, so there's already one besides the stretch goal. A full art sticker pack and an upgraded acrylic base piece of Bear Valley Hills, which is in the center of the... You can see here on some of the art. Let's see if I can find it. It's right in the center of the playmat. Usually 2D, but you can get a acrylic version. Here, you can see this in this video. So there's an acrylic version, a 3D acrylic version here on the $99 level. It hit the initial pledge after 10 hours. And they're still going, almost 300%, 533 backers, still 19 days to go. As I said, 2nd of July is the last day. And the art, I think it really depends. If you liked Cartoon Network on the early aughts, that's the kind of art they are using here. The way to play the game, the strategy, the rules of the game, to me, are the main topic here. The way the game changes a lot from one match to the other.
Well, that looks like a really awesome game, actually. I may have to share that with a handful of friends and see if somebody wants to back that.
It's always a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, let's call it.
All right. That's it for another episode of the show. If you have any questions about the games we featured, or if you'd like us to consider a game on the podcast, feel free to email us at thecurators@gamerati.com, and we'll answer you on the podcast.
You can also reach Joey and myself on Twitter and Facebook at Gamerati. The show notes for this episode and all our episodes are at thecurators.gamerati.com. You can also find The Curators on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
And don't forget to check out our curated page at kickstarter.com/Gamerati. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/Gamerati.
All right. See you next week, Joey.
See you next week.